Hey everyone, I'm Zack Dettmore with Dettmore Home Improvements, and today I wanted to talk about how to maximize the benefits of Froth-Pak 210 insulation foam. What this is a two-part insulation. It's a spray foam, mixes A and B together in the nozzle of the spraying applicator, and it's great because professionals can use this product without having to involve a professional insulation contractor and work around their schedule and the complexities of a large spray foam rig. So I wanted to talk to you today about how to sort of get as much out of this and make sure you avoid common pitfalls. Most of the application errors really come as a result of people not understanding temperature. So this product is happiest when it's between 75 and 85 degrees, and that's the temperature of the product in the cans. It does not need to be that warm outside. Basically, the ambient air in the space you're spraying does not need to really be 75 or greater, but the containers themselves should be. So how do you get those warm enough? You want to make sure these are warm enough, even if you're storing them slightly cooler than 75 degrees. You want to get them warmed up to 75 degrees. I typically do that by putting them in, maybe a closet with a heat source in it. Just get that temperature up a little bit, and I'll do that overnight. You don't want to try and put these in front of a space heater and warm them up quickly. That's dangerous and not advisable for any space heater, but warm them up overnight the day before. Now, one thing I like to use is a thermal imaging camera because I can check the temperature of the can, I can check the temperature of the air, and I can check the temperature of the substrate, which is the term we use for the material we're applying the spray foam to. Typically, it would be the interior of a sidewall of a house, so it would be back of plywood or sheathing of some sort. And if you think about maybe it was 55 degrees when the sun came up, you showed up to the job site, and although the air might be at 65, the substrate might still be cool. So you want to think about trying to check that substrate temperature, because what can happen if you spray this material onto something very cold, it could potentially peel away. So it's always best practices when you're worried about the temperature and you think you're maybe on that edge of it being too cold, make sure that you check it beforehand. Check the temperature of the bottle, the air, and the substrate. The other thing to think about is don't do a heavy coat on your first pass. A quick flash coat, meaning spraying the material as thinly as possible and as quickly as possible, will allow that first coat to bind in. Then you can do heavier coats on top of that, because if you do a very heavy coat, it may want to pull away from the substrate and leave a pocket of air, which you don't want if you're trying to maximize the benefit of this product. So if you want to warm up the tanks, I think it's a good idea to open the box up and remove the tanks from the box, because that's going to keep them from acting as an insulator. Even though the box doesn't have a tremendous amount of R value, it is going to slow down slightly the amount of time it takes for these to warm up. So once these are nice and warm, if you're spraying the foam in a job where the ambient temperature is lower than 75 degrees, what you can do is basically I use a moving blanket typically. You can get these at pretty much any home center or hardware store, but I'll basically make a makeshift koozie out of the blanket and wrap them up just to keep them as warm as possible. You're not trying to make this perfect, but the warmer the material is, the better it's going to flow, the better your project's going to be. So using something as simple as a blanket as you spray, typically you're not doing this for a long time, so it's just to keep that temperature as high as possible so it's not losing heat to the air around it. So when you're checking these for temperature, it's a good idea to give them a little bit of a shake, because the material close to the outside might have warmed up, but the material in the middle may not have. So give them a quick little shake so you know everything's evenly distributed before checking the temperature and seeing if they're warm enough to work with. Another thing to consider is where the sun is on the building you're working on. Typically, the sun is going to warm up the east side of the building first. So if you're worried about temperature and you're shooting the exterior walls of a building, start with the east side where the sun is warming the outside of the building. That's going to help get that substrate up to temperature so you can work and get it done. So the next thing I think is very important is to think about your route. Move everything out of the way that could potentially affect your ability to move through the room. Every time you stop with a product like spray foam, it's going to start curing inside the tip, which means you'll have to remove that and swap it out. Although they give you plenty of tips, so it's unlikely you're going to run out. Every time you swap a tip, you're wasting time, you're also wasting material. And you want to maximize your ability to use this product and not waste any of it. So by moving everything ahead of time, planning your route, whether it's left to right, up to down, knowing exactly where you're going, and having your cans ability to pick up and follow you around and not have a cluttered work environment is going to allow you to get the most out of this product. So those are some tips and tricks to hopefully set your project up for success. Remember, temperature is very important to get right. Applying the material correctly in thin coats is always a best practice, and planning out your route ahead of time is going to set you up for success. I'm Zack Dettmore. Hopefully you learned something. See you later.